Right, as part of our informational videos, we want to do some practical videos around things that are actually within quotations that are necessary in order to ensure that your budget is right. Provisional sums. You're going to see this a lot within your quotes where people refer to them as a provisional sum or a provisional item, or they might just call it PC sum where other contractors shorthand it. So what is a provisional sum? It's basically an amount of money which is either allocated by your architect, because some architects specify provisional sums, or it can be an item that myself or another contractor has put in as a provisional sum. For example, steelworks. So how do we deal with provisional sum? How do we deal with provisional sums? If you take steelworks, for example, if you're going through the planning process and you haven't yet got planning permission, but you are trying to get quotes from contractors, 9 times out of 10, people have not got to the point where they have had things like steel specified. And the reason is that would be another fee from a consultant, depending on the size, but somewhere between £800 and £2,500, depending on project size, that you wouldn't want to spend that money until you know that you've got the planning permission, so things are done in the right order. So how can a contractor price for the steelworks when there are none specified? Well, the only way we can deal with that is by using a provisional sum. Now, you want that provisional sum to be relative to the work in hand. So, you don't want low figures for a big item such as steelworks in the hundreds. It's likely they're going to be in the thousands. So, a general single-story rear extension with a single knot-through, maybe somewhere between 4,000 and 6,500, just to give you a bit of a range. And that is still subject to variation. So that's how we deal with provisional sums, is that we will put them in so that the overall quote comes in that actually reflects the work in hand, but there are still items that are questionable. In this example, we're saying that steels are still questionable. Then if you was to commit to that project, or you know where you stand on that project, once you've got your permission, you'll employ your structural engineer. Structural engineer will specify steel sizes, any additional work that they deem fit to certain flank walls, and ensure that what you've got planning permission will be built and structurally sound. Therefore, we would then take all this new information, we would recost that item, and then we would deduct our initial sum. And also, this can work both ways. So if, for example, we've allowed 5,000 or 6,000, and it turns out there's a lot less work to do because of the way that the structure has been designed, that can work in your favor. On the opposite side to that, especially in today's world, engineers seem to have a knack of adding to the work and putting in things that the contractor or the architect didn't foresee, and that price may have gone up. So if a provisional item is then repriced at 7,000 or 8,000, we would deduct off the original amount that was within your contracted quote. In this case, say somewhere between 6,500, and we will then, the variation will be the balance between the two. So that's how we deal with provisional sums, but just make sure that a provisional sum is directly related to the work in hand. So if you have got a large steel knot through and the contractors or somebody pricing has put in a low sum, say £400 or £500 to keep their bottom line looking pretty keen, remember 400 or 500 can still jump to 7,000 or 8,000. So a jump from 500 to 7,000 is a huge jump, but a jump from 6,000 to 7,000 to 7,000 or 8,000 is a jump that's seen to be pretty sensible in the industry. On the flip side of that, how can we avoid provisional sums? Well, if you want quotes before you've got planning permission and before you've had your structural engineers work done, you're not going to be able to avoid them. Or we simply just don't put the sum in there. So we give you a quote, and then in the exclusions, we completely exclude steels subject to your engineer's details being made available in due course. At the same time, once you've got your planning permission, you've now got your drawings done, you can come back to me, you can say, right, we've had all our structural engineers done, we're not ready to commit to the project yet, but we want to tighten things up. Can we look at our provisional sums, because we know the steelworks are going to be as per this design, and I will happily reprice the steelworks as a fixed price based on them drawings. So that just gives you a basic insight to provisional sums. Generally this can be bifold doors, steelworks, plumbing, heating. And again, on all extension work, we use provisional sums for plumbing and heating, for example, on every single project. And the reason is because we can't see under ceilings, we can't see what's going on with the existing plumbing. So therefore, we can't guess what, whether we're going to have to do additional work within the house in order to bolt on the extension heating and plumbing. So 100% of our quotes, regardless of specification for extensions, are provisional for plumbing, for example. 9 times out of 10, steelworks is always provisional because nobody has the steel design in good time for us to price it, because of, as I said, the reasons before. You wouldn't necessarily commit, get your planning permission in place and then commit to the engineer. If you commit to the engineer with no planning, you get it all designed, which is great for me and for pricing, and then potentially you get a refusal, or you have to make alterations to your extension. Therefore, not only did your architect plans change, your engineer's plans changed, and you're going to have to pay both of them consultants to make them adequate changes. So be aware of provisional sums. You can tighten them up by giving as much information to your builder as possible, and that just de-risks it. But when you're looking at provisional sums, make sure that they are directly correlated to the work in hand. Yeah, a set of bifold doors in today's money, somewhere between £4,000 and £8,000. So if somebody's put in a provisional sum of £1,000 for a set of bifolding doors, it's probably not going to end well for the budget, because at some point that variation is going to be a huge jump. So there you go, provisional sums. Keep your eyes out.